Hi, and welcome to another edition of Genesis Law Firm Teaches. Today we are going to be looking at this topic, which is how to start a business in Washington State. This is just an overview. We're going to produce or have produced other videos on the subparts of this. It would take far too long to tell you in one video how to start a business in Washington. So look for the other videos if you want more detail. And I should mention that we're only discussing the legal aspects of starting a business. We're not talking about, for example, starting your business plan. That's a different topic entirely. So the first step in forming a business would be to form your business entity. You'll almost always want to have a business entity. And that's usually going to be an LLC. That's the most popular choice right now, though there are a number of other business entities out there. For example, you could form a corporation broken into C corporations and S corporations. It could be a limited liability partnership, a limited partnership. They all have their pros and cons, and we can help you figure out which one might be best for you, or you can look at these other videos and articles that we're producing to try to figure out the answer on your own. If you are going to form a business entity, you will want to make sure that the business name is available before you get into the process of actually forming that entity. And so you'll want to check to make sure that no other businesses are currently using that name. We can help you figure out exactly how to do that. We can help you run your search. And if you look at the other videos that we're producing, you'll probably find the one that will explain how to do that. You'll also want to make sure that the name's not trademarked. We can, of course, help you figure that out, and you'll want to make sure that the web domain or the website is available. It's usually seen as more professional if your business name and the website match each other. The next step in forming a business entity would be to draft the operating agreement. If you're forming an LLC, a limited liability company, then the operating agreement is called the LLC agreement. And there are different kinds of operating agreements that you would draft depending on the kind of entity that you are forming. You might not need an operating agreement. For example, if you are the only owner and you never intend for there to be another owner and you never intend to buy real estate, then it may be perfectly fine to operate your business without an operating agreement. But usually you will want an operating agreement. And then the next step would be to file with the Washington Secretary of State. Usually you'll want to do that online, though you can do it through the mail with a written submission if you would prefer. Step 2 in the process of forming your business would be to get an EIN, or Employer Identification Number, from the federal government. This would be your federal tax identification number, and you've got to have one if you're going to legally operate in the United States. Usually, you'll also need an owner of the business who has some sort of tax identification number. If you are a citizen, then that would simply be your Social Security number. If you're not a citizen, but you have status in the United States, then there would be another tax number that you've been issued. If there is nobody who is an owner and has some form of tax number associated with that individual, then you can still form a business, but it's basically a placeholder. There's not a lot that you can do with that business. An exception would be if an owner is about to get a tax number. If an owner is about to get a tax number, then you can operate the business and do almost anything any other business would do, but only for about 6 to 12 months while the owner is getting his number. Step 3 in the process of forming a business in Washington would be to get a master business license. This is the state business license, and you would get that from the Department of Licensing. It's a fairly simple process. You just go online and you check some boxes and pay a fee. Step 4 in the process of forming a business in Washington would be to get your local business licenses. Every location for your business in Washington needs to have a local business license. And that local business license would be through usually the municipality of the location. So For example, if you have a location in Seattle and another one in Everett and another one in Bellevue, you would need to have business licenses with each one of those cities. Usually you'll get that directly through the city, but in some situations you can actually get that online at the same time as you're applying for your master business license through the state. Some cities have signed up with the state to simplify the process. Step 5 in forming a business in Washington would be to get your specialty business licenses. There are a whole host of these specialty licenses that apply to a vast number of businesses in Washington. And oftentimes, unless you've run this type of business before, you would never have a clue that these business licenses are necessary. There is a list that's about 8 pages long, very small type, and each line is a different business license or specialty license that you would need for a particular kind of business. For example, if you're a restaurant, there are several licenses that you usually need, specialty licenses, food handlers permits, maybe a liquor license, etc. If you run a building company, a construction company, usually you need to be bonded and licensed, etc. So very important that you check out these specialty licenses. The 6th step in getting your business up and running would be to get your bank account. You, interestingly enough, cannot get your business bank account until you've done most of these other steps, because the bank won't set up your business account until you can give them some of the numbers that you would have gotten from processing some of these other steps. You may have a number of other miscellaneous steps that you might need to take. I call them miscellaneous because they might or might not apply to you. Some examples might be financing. If you're trying to raise financing for your business, then there are a number of regulations that apply. You can't get money through most steps that most people think that they can. It's very, very tightly regulated. If you are trying to take your business and run it in a location where there hasn't been a business of that type before, then you'd usually want to look at whether or not the zoning and code issues would be a problem for you. For example, is a particular location okay for running a manufacturing plant? Or it might be an issue whether the sign you want to put up is okay for those particular zoning regulations or codes. There is a lot more information on this topic and related topics if you want to go to our website. So if you'd like to read the article that's on this particular topic, as well as related articles and watch videos that are related, here is how you can get there.